Fantastic. Cheers, David. Hello to everybody that I know and people that I don't know as well. I recognise some of you, and great to kind of see some old faces as well. What we thought that Julie thought that I would go first. So I'm down here in Glasgow. I'm in Low Moss and Barlinnie is chatting. I do 1 day a week in Barlinnie and the rest at Low Moss. So I commute at weekends. The weekends that I'm there on church, which hasn't been for kind of 14 weeks. I'm able to go home kind of most weekends, so it's great. So I'll just share my story first, then Julie will share, and we can kind of open up for questions or whatever you guys kind of want to do. Does that sound like a plan? Great. So as David says, my name is Paul Innes. I'm from the northeast of Scotland, probably closer to Norway than Glasgow, to be fair. I'm 42 this year. I know that I don't look it. But grew up in Fraserburgh, great family. Everything was fantastic. We moved house kind of when I was probably 11 or 12. I was in I would have been 11. I was in my last year at primary school. So we moved to a different part of Fraserburgh. And not long after we had moved, my dad sort of said he named 3 or 4 streets that we were to stay away from. And of course, being a young lad, I was absolutely intrigued as to why I would have to stay away from there. It sounded that there might be something exciting going on. So made friends quite quickly. I was into the first year of the academy, and there was a guy that lived on the same street. He asked if I'd ever sort of smoked fags, and I said, yes, I've tried smoking. And then he went into his brother's suit. His brother was a fisherman. His suit was hanging up in the wardrobe. And he went into his brother's suit jacket pocket, the inside pocket, there was a bag of weed. So he rolled a joint, and we shared a joint. Absolutely loved it. You know, I was stoned for the first time. And I remember he put on this big set of headphones, and it was INXS Kick, that album. Absolutely brilliant album. And I remember just lying in this leather settee with a joint, listening to INXS Kick, thinking that I had life sorted at the bold age of 12. Enjoyed sort of smoking dope, and kind of carried on doing that over the next sort of year or two. We started kind of taking acid, LSD, like in the summertime. Absolutely kind of bizarre thing, an acid trip. Some of you will know what I'm speaking about. Bizarre, crazy summers. Used to get up to all sorts and kind of float about. Then the rave scene landed. So everybody would go out dancing for the fall weekend, sort of kind of Friday night till Sunday afternoon, really. But the rave scene didn't really, I enjoyed it, and I went out a few times. But I preferred the drugs that slowed me down as opposed to the drugs that sort of speeded me up. You can probably tell that I don't like going fast. But I think at school, you know, I was very good. I was quite academic the first couple of years. Jim Connon will tell you I'm very very intelligent and good with my words. But I think, like, I was always competent. Like, my report card would always say the same thing. Paul is easily distracted. Paul is a distraction. Paul could do better. And I remember my French teacher, my mum dug out my old report cards and photos when I first introduced her to Julie. The box came down from the loft. And my report card for third year in Fraserburgh Academy said this from a French teacher: Paul will never achieve his full potential in life. What a bold claim. What a harsh thing to say about somebody when they're 15 years old. So I was a Christmas leaver at school. So being a Christmas leaver, every Friday, we got to go up to the local college and did like a broad-based technical course. So it was there that I fell in love with welding. I was going to be a welder. I was going to go offshore and become a millionaire. That was the plan. It was while at college that kind of things got a bit more desperate for me as far as drugs go. There was a local dealer stayed beside the college, and I used to go there every Friday. I was at the college through the day, and then I did an evening shift at the local fish factory. I did a 5 to 10 shift. Used to get paid every Friday. I used to buy these tablets from a local guy. They're called Temgesic tablets. So I used to buy 10 of them for 30 quid and then sell them for a fiver each. So it meant that I got four for free. So did that for 2 or 3 months. And I remember going to buy Temgesics one Friday, and my dealer, he said to me, he said, Paul, I don't have Thames, he said, but I've got gear. Little did I know, like, this was going to be the first time that I would use heroin in the grab that it would take of me. I rang up one of my mates. I didn't know how to take it. He showed me how to smoke it on tinfoil and stuff. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought it was okay. The following Friday, I went back again to buy the tablets. No tablets, but what I do have. And that was me, really. So every Friday, I would start buying heroin. Then I would buy heroin on a Saturday, then a Thursday, then a Sunday. And I remember waking up one morning. It was in the summer. I was working full time at the factory because the college was on holiday. And I remember waking up one morning, rattling, feeling awful, and thinking, "Oh man, I'm a heroin addict." Like I'd come to the realization that I was now hopelessly addicted to heroin. What do I do? I went to the doctor. The doctor put me on a meth script. I would love to tell you that was me totally sorted out then, but I ended up on meth for the next 9 years. I packed up my college course. My welding wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. I was under the influence of heroin and tablets and methadone and all sorts of drugs. So I ended up working in a factory full time. Worked very, very hard, always at my work, never took a day off. We were always brought up with a very good kind of work ethic. Like if I was to say to my dad I would taking a day off work, he would say, "You're not taking a day off, that's an affront." That's the kind of guy my dad is, very kind of old school. So kind of went along to work. Next kind of 9, 10 years, absolutely hopeless, hooked on heroin. Like used to think I was doing well. I was just taking my methadone, taking jellies, tablets, whatever it was, and thought my methadone, as long as I wasn't taking heroin or crack, I was doing okay. Absolutely deceiving myself that I was doing well, really. 2004, probably kind of the summer of 2004. By this time, my brother, he was a heroin addict as well. We were both sort of using together. And my brother had decided he'd had enough, so he'd started going along to the local drop-in, the Solid Rock Cafe. And he said, "You should come along." He said, "They're good people. They want to help." And I knew that these were churchy people. I'd seen them doing some stuff on the main street in Fraserburgh and thought, no, that's not for me. And he met me from my work one evening and he said, "There's a meal on at the Solid Rock. Do you want to come?" Now, game changer. Absolute game changer. I'm thinking, nice one. I'll get my belly filled. So I went along, lovely meal. And there was an American team, a missionary team over for a month, working with the outreach centre. The two guys got up and started speaking about relapse prevention. I put my hand up. I was high as a kite. And the guy, Johnny, said, "Yeah, Paul, what is it?" I was American. He said, and I said, "You're speaking to me about relapse prevention." I said, "But tell me how to get clean first, and then maybe tell me about relapse prevention." I said, "I've got absolutely no hope." The guy chatted to me for a minute, and I thought, "I'll see you later." I'd had my meal, cheerio. And so that was kind of my first time. Then I went back a second time, and then I lost my job in the factory that I worked in. That was me then. So I was making kind of 350, 400 pound a week back in 2004, which was quite good money then for working in a factory. But blowing it all by sort of Monday, Tuesday, tapping off my mom, stealing, just being an absolute dodger. decided kind of to go along to the Solid Rock. The guy that ran it, Ben Ritchie, asked him to help me write a letter of appeal. And he said, why do you want to appeal? And I said, well, they've sacked me for being an addict, but I've been an addict for 10 years. I want to know what's changed. Like, if they've spent 9.5 years not realising how hopeless I was. Anyway, we decided that we wouldn't write a letter of appeal. He invited me along to church that Sunday. He said, your brother's in Teen Challenge, he's doing well. What about you? I said, oh, I'm not going to rehab. That's not for me. He said, I'll pick you up for church on Sunday. And I thought, dude, there is absolutely no way I am going to church. Church is for weirdos. Like my perception of church was kind of old men and women that smelt a cheap dog food. You know what I mean? Like, that was sort of how I thought old people went to church for a nap. But again, if you come to church, I'll buy you a fish supper afterwards. I was there, fish supper. Sat through the meeting wondering if I'd have salt and vinegar or just go all out and have sauce as well. So I went to church, but one thing that blew me away with my first time in church was how lovely the people were, how genuine they were. I'd spent kind of the last 10, 15 years using drugs, and like in the addiction scene, like people just use each other. Like if somebody's got money, you'll follow them about the whole day in the hope that they might just give you a bit of gear or whatever it might be. But these people were genuine. Like they asked me how I was, and then waited for a reply. And I thought, I quite like this. The music was okay, and I'm thinking, wow, this is not what I kind of perceived church to be. The next Sunday, I went along and started going along every Sunday. My brother was in Teen Challenge in Sunny Brae by this time, and he's writing my letters and little verses at the end saying, oh, we're praying for you and this and that. Absolutely fantastic. December the 4th, 2004, one of my mates came home from the fishing. I was up through the night. I'm a gamer, I'm a PlayStation guy. But Grand Theft Auto San Andreas had just come out for the PlayStation 2. And I'd been up all night playing it. And I got a message at about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning from one of my friends. He said, listen, we're on our way in. He said, I've got a big wage to pick up at the office at 9 o'clock. And he finished his message with this: do you want to party? I had no money. I wanted to party. So he came in a taxi. We went to the bar that his sister worked in. He slipped me some money across the table and said, let's get high. That was about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. By 2 o'clock, I'd collapsed. Massive overdose outside the Victoria Wines on the main street in Fraserburgh. And the back of an ambulance, I woke up in Aberdeen Hospital. It was the pastor, Ben Ritchie, and Daniel Sutherland with him. And I remember just sort of waking up in a haze, not a clue what had happened. And they started to chat to me and told me what had happened and all the rest of it. And I looked kind of to my right. There was a black bag with tape around the top that said soiled goods. My body had collapsed. It was a lovely aroma in the little room that I was in. But Ben prayed for me, said a prayer, and then he was quite harsh. He said, listen, you've been very lucky this time, Paul. You could have died. He says, have you had enough? Then left. And I started to think, and I thought, something I really have. I've had enough of this life. And that would have been sort of my moment where I kind of, Damascus Road, if you like, where I sort of thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't live this life. I hate it. I hate who I am. I hate what I'm doing. The people that I'm hurting, all that. But I can't go on anymore. So that was December the 4th, 2004. So I knuckled down, started to behave a bit better. Kind of stuck to my script. I was just smoking hash, quite a lot of hash, but like it was manageable compared to how I'd been living the years before. Still going along to church on a Sunday. Went to the Christmas service. Absolutely loved it. There was a couple in the church invited me for Sunday dinner. An older couple, and I'm thinking, why are they inviting a drug addict for Sunday dinner? Why would they do that? They fed me. They were lovely. And then I still visit them, and then I'm great friends with them even still. I said, go through the spare room and have a lie down. You can come to church with us tonight. I lay down in the bed. It was like lying down in a cloud. Like, woke him up for the meeting, and I just wanted to sleep on. January the 28th, I'd been steady going along to the Solid Rock Cafe, the drop-in and the groups and different things. And January the 28th, 2005, I was there, and Kevin Duthie, he's a pastor in Fraserburgh now, good friend of mine, and he offered me a run home. He said, do you want a lift? And I said, aye. And Ben, who was running the Solid Rock at the time, he said, no, Paul's staying here. I want to have a chat with him. And I'm thinking, oh dear, what's happened? Is there money missing for the box? Am I way to get into trouble? And he sat me down. He said, Paul, you've been coming along to church for a while now. What do you think? And I said, well, I really enjoy it. And he said, yep. He said, but he said, you want to get clean. He says, you're a good man. You've been coming along to church. He said, you're doing well for a wee while, and then you're falling again. And he said, you need Jesus. He said, if you are to get clean and stay clean, he says, you need the Lord. You need the strength of the Lord to change. Let him work in your life. He said, you need peace. I'm thinking, yep, ticked every box. He said, do you want to give your life to the Lord? And I did. We prayed that evening. Never felt peace like it in my life. Absolutely incredible. So I drove me home, and outside my mum and dad's house, parked the car. He said, you need to go in and tell your mum and dad what you've just done. And I said, dude, my mum and dad are normal people. I said, there's absolutely no chance I'm going in and telling them I became a Christian. He said, we'll pray. And he prayed for him. I said, dude, you come in with me. No. Listen, you do it. It's biblical. And he was telling me these stories with the Bible. And I'm thinking, aye, great. So up a path I goes in. My dad's sitting with his newspaper. Mum, she's sitting in her seat knitting or watching EastEnders or something. So I sat down and I said, I've got something to tell you. And my dad, he never moved for his newspaper. Mum, being a good mum, she says, in classic Northeast dialect, she said, fit. And I said, I've given my life to Jesus. I said, I'm now washed in the blood and forgiven. Hallelujah. My dad went like that with his newspaper. Totally underwhelmed. And my mum, she said, oh, very good. I went up the stairs and texted Ben and said, well, that went well. But things really started to change after I became a Christian. I chilled out a lot. I started meeting up with the pastor of the local church every morning at 10 o'clock, Monday to Friday. If you went sort of Monday to Thursday, you got a fried breakfast for Tesco's on the Friday. So needless to say, I was a perfect attendee. But these people for the church just poured into me. Absolutely incredible people. Loved me, taught me, spent time with me. Absolutely, I just blew my mind, the love that I was shown. I always kind of said that I fasted. I'll tell you this story. I fasted one Wednesday. The minister that I was meeting up with at 10 every morning, he just checking the time. He said, listen, we're going to believe that you don't have to go to rehab. We're going to fast and we're going to pray that Jesus would break the chains of addiction in your life. I'm thinking, nice one. Anything but go to rehab. So that morning I went up and I met with the pastor and he said, right, we're going to fast today. And right, great. So I met him 10 to 12. Then I went down to the Solid Rock to see Ben. And Ben said, what's up with you? I said, oh, I'm okay. He said, you're miserable. He said, you're not yourself. He said, what's different today? I said, nothing. So I left it. An hour later, he said, what's up? You're angry. You're snapping at everybody. I said, oh, I'm struggling a bit. I said, I'm fasting. He said, you're fasting? I said, aye. I said, the pastor says that if I don't eat for a day, I don't have to go to rehab. He threw me a $5 to get a fish supper. Eventually, I went away to the Teen Challenge down in Wales on April the 19th, 2005. Absolutely incredible place. Kind of had a serious rattle, went through serious kind of cold turkey. Absolutely barbaric. But you know, if it was easy, I would probably have left. But It's sort of like the thought of going on a bus or a train for hours and hours on end. I just couldn't even think about it. Did the programme down in Wales, stayed on, did the School of Ministry there. Absolutely loved it. People kind of potential. Everybody's got potential. I believe every one of us are created with gifts and talents that are kind of exclusive to us, if you like. God has created us that He might use us for His kingdom. I was always told, listen, you're a people person, you need to go into ministry and all the rest of it. And you know, there was a bit of pressure sort of came with that. But I went up to Winchester House after I'd finished the, see you there, Jackie Jones, lovely woman, down the corner there. But Winchester, I went with Jackie there, and I was there for 2 years. Absolutely incredible setting, if anyways have been to Winchester. Just, cracking place, being able to kind of get alongside the guys. I was speaking 2 or 3 times a week there, so kind of was able to preach and kind of start up that gift, really. But loved my time there, but always had a heart for Fraserburgh, for my hometown. Prayed for my hometown. I used to say to Ben Ritchie, who ran the Solid Rock at the time, I'm going to come home and I want to do what you're doing. He said, listen, I really hope you do. So I'd been in Winchester about a year and a half, and had a conversation with Ben. And he said, listen, I'm going up to work in the church as associate pastor part-time. There'll be a part-time role in the Solid Rock. Let's pray and fast about it. So we did. In December 2008, I moved back to Fraserburgh. People said that I was mad going back to my hometown and the place where I'd used, but I had changed, you know. I like I was a lot stronger than I had been, and thought I want to help people that I know. So kind of within sort of moving home, and me and Julie were friends at the time. We were in the friend zone. If anybody's ever been in the friend zone, it's a dark, horrible place. That was Julie's choice, not mine. Julie eventually crumbled and got married in 2010. I started to run the Solid Rock Cafe, the place that I'd gone for help, and became a Christian. Loads of people, and you know, with some great nights, these street churches once a month and different things. Absolutely incredible. Always had a heart for prisons. Never been in prison, bless the Lord, but I used to pray for prisoners often. I started volunteering through Prison Fellowship when it was Craig Inches in the old Peterhead prison, and they were building the new one in Grampian. So Grampian was open about a month, and there was about 60 young offenders in there, and the prison offered me some hours on the chaplaincy team working with the young offenders, which I absolutely loved. So I was in kind of working in the Solid Rock and working part-time in the prison. Loved it, loved being in the prison, everything that brings. In my time sort of working in Grampian, I did my minister's ticket. I'm a fully ordained minister. You can call me Reverend Paulinus if you like. But hi, absolutely incredible what God has done in my life and the journey that He's taken me on. As I say, I'm now chaplain full-time at Low Moss in Barlinnie. 2 cracking kids, Joel and Hannah. I'm their favourite. They love Dad more than Mum. Only joking. But, you know, my kids looking at me like I'm their hero. And I think often, what on earth have I done to deserve this? And the truth is, absolutely nothing. I deserve nothing, yet God and His faithfulness and in His love has chosen me for such a time as this to do the ministry that I'm involved in. It's incredible, really. Absolutely incredible. And I was always kind of had good people speaking into my life, and even still yet, got people that I'm accountable to and different things. So that would kind of be my story, really.
Thank you for sharing. Julie?
Yeah, so I am up in Fraserburgh. Paul was home for a big bulk of lockdown, wasn't you? You never answered that question, so I'll answer it. I normally finish his sentences anyway. He was home for weeks of lockdown, which was a blessing. And now he's back doing the road. But thankfully, we are easing out of lockdown, which is brilliant, isn't it? But yeah, my story, similar to Paul's. Never grew up in Fraserburgh. My accent might sound a bit different. I grew up in the city. I'm from Aberdeen originally. People say I sound now like a broker, but I grew up in the city. Do say a lot of words differently. Like maybe I noticed Chase here. Like my husband likes to say that I say burger really funny. Burger, like it's an Aberdeen thing, is it? But grew up in the city, just had a good life growing up. I'm one of 4 kids. Life was good for us through school, and then really mum and dad split up when I was young. Never really realised, I suppose, until I was older, the impact that had on me. But when I got to academy, I suppose for me really was when things started to go wrong, and kind of went to academy, just got in with the wrong group of people. Always wanted to do what everybody else was doing, be part of the crowd, could never say no to anything. So when I moved up to academy, I began skipping school early on, smoking hash in the huts and kind of saving up my money and getting drunk at weekends and that kind of stuff. And that was probably at a very young age. So you're speaking like first year of academy. So I was probably 11, 12 year old when I was doing stuff like that. And everybody else, the rest of my family, they were fine. I just kind of went off the rails a little bit, or a big bit, is all going to tell you. But kind of just started going through school. We named much purpose. Never really wanted to do anything with my life. If you'd asked me, what do you want to be when you're older? I could never have told you. I never had any dreams or ambitions or wanted to achieve anything. I just lived for the weekends, really. And I remember them days, and as I kind of grew up through my teens, I then progressed on to ecstasy and party drugs and different things like that, and went out clubbing every weekend at the age of like 13, 14, would just be absolutely out of it on ecstasy and speed, and stay up for days on end, and come home. And obviously my mum was seeing this pattern, and that wasn't a healthy pattern in my life, and there was alarm bells, but I continued to live like that until I got to the age at 15. But at the age of 13, I started a relationship then with somebody, and I thought, as a little girl at 13, that this was the guy I would spend the rest of my life with, and this is how it's meant to be. And by the time I was 15, I was pregnant, and I stopped taking party drugs and I stopped drinking, and I thought, okay, I'll settle down, I'll have a baby, and this will be the answer to all my problems. I will be able to sort my life out. And I remember getting my first flat at the age of 16 in an area, Aberdeen, and your first flat, I was 16, nothing much, but it was mine. Everybody kind of rallied round and helped me get this flat together, and I thought, this is it, I'm going to sort my life out. And my son was born 8 weeks premature, and I was a young girl who had abused drugs from a very early age, so really had never grown up really myself. So it was quite a scary time, 16, with a new baby that was 4 pound and then neonatal, and everything just happened really, really fast. And I remember being in a hospital, and my partner at the time not coming back for hours after he was born. And I remember when he did appear, he told me that he was addicted to heroin. Now, we used party drugs together and stuff, and I knew that he smoked hash and there was things, but I never knew it was as bad as it was. But we got out of hospital and took Jordan home to our flat. But it was then that I really, really began to struggle. I think I was in this flat. I was a young girl trying to look after a baby. I was in a relationship. He was back and forth in young offenders institutes, and I was always on my own. It was lonely. I got really depressed, and I remember just thinking, I can't cope. I actually just can't cope. And I remember I got to the doctors, and they says, you're a bit depressed. We'll give you antidepressants and maybe something to help you sleep. And I remember one night, I tried heroin once before, like years before, and it made me really, really sick. But I remember this one night in particular, I just thought maybe I just wanted to sleep. I just wanted to be able to cope and function. And I remember thinking, if I could try heroin, then maybe I'll just be able to settle. But I'll never be like everybody else. And the stories that I'd heard about and the people that I knew that were heroin addicts, I'll never be like them. And that would have been my way of thinking. And I remember buying a bit of heroin, sitting in my living room on my own and smoking this bit of heroin. And I remember just how it made me feel, and just, it was like wrapping me up in cotton wool. It's how I can explain it. I felt safe. I thought I can function. This is okay. I'll never get addicted. So it was maybe once every couple of nights, and then within a couple of weeks I was using heroin every day, trying to bring up a new baby as an addict, which was very, very challenging. Obviously, as the weeks passed, so did my addiction, and I progressed very quickly onto injecting heroin. I then needed money to fund my drug habit, so I began shoplifting with my child many a times. I was very well known within Aberdeen for being a shoplifter, banned from most shopping outlets there was. They knew us by name, to the point that some of the security guards used to buy my child Easter eggs because they knew us that well. I was in everyday shoplifting. That was my job, as I would have said. That's what I was meant to do. And I did this every single day until it got to the point where my family were bailing me out of the time when I was getting arrested and having to pick Jordan up for the police custody. And it just got out of hand really quick. And obviously then that led to social work involvement, and FIC comes along via that, which is nae nice. It's nae a nice journey at all. And I remember thinking, I need help. And I remember my mum and dad coming together and sitting me down and saying, you need to sort your life out, or you're going to die, or you're going to lose your child. And I remember thinking, okay. So they took me to the doctor, and like Paul says, here's a methadone program that'll sort you out. So they put me on methadone. They gave me sleeping tablets along with my antidepressants. And I would do okay for a little while. And then I would then begin to struggle again, and I would always go back to that way of life. It just pulled me in, and I kept going back. And it got to a really tough year. 1 year we obviously were back and forth to children's hearings, and they were monitoring me and my mothering skills. And I suppose being a young girl who'd never really grown up, because when you take drugs for all that years, you didn't really grow up and mature the way that you should. Your growth is kind of stunted, isn't it? And I never really grew up, and then I knew all the answers. So people weren't going to tell me how I had to live and how I was going to mother my child. I knew all the answers. And I realised very quickly that I knew nothing. I absolutely knew nothing. And we got to this year that the wheels fell off of everything, and I was taken in one day and told that Jordan was getting taken for my care. And I remember just thinking, if I couldn't abide clean for him, how am I ever going to sort my life out? And thankfully, like, I had family who were very, very supportive, and he went to stay with them at the age of like 2.5, and it should have been an incentive for me to sort my life out, but it kind of put me then on a downward spiral, and I continued to really go off the rails because of the guilt that I felt then for the things that I had exposed him to, I suppose, or the guilt that I felt for the things that I was doing. I mean, I was shoplifting, I was robbing people, I was on the streets. Things were crazy, absolutely chaotic. People would come into our house with knives and take my partner by throat by knives. We were in a dark place, and I remember just thinking, if I didn't get out of this, I am going to die. But I kept using, and seeing my son very little. I wasn't allowed to. It was monitored. It was kind of, and my family had given up all hope really on me ever changing. I remember my dad saying on my wedding day that when he walked me down the aisle, that he never ever. I remember the tears in his eyes when I came down the stairs that morning, because he always says he never ever thought he would walk me down the aisle. He always thought he'd be carrying my coffin, and I suppose that was the reality of the lifestyle I was living. I was injecting all over my body. I had abscesses. I had contracted hepatitis C. My body was really, really failing, and I'd just given up all hope that I would ever change. I remember thinking maybe one day I'll be able to stick to my methadone, but that'll probably be as far as it'll go. And at the time, I was introduced to some people from Teen Challenge, like Paul Story, and the guy that I had been with at the time had went away to Teen Challenge. Our relationship had broken up, but I remember somebody inviting me along to church, and I remember thinking, I've nothing to lose. I've tried everything else. I've tried drugs counsellors. I've tried all this stuff, and nothing's worked for me. So I started going along to church. Really, an agenda, thinking if I go along to church and kind of mark on like I'm clean, maybe we'll get back together and live this happily ever after. But God had other plans, and I would go along to church, and these people were absolutely incredible. I mean, I like, they just loved on me, absolutely loved on me. And I would sit at the front of this church with the pastor's wife, and every week, and I would get up at the end of the service with my head on her shoulder because I'd gouged out, and I would tell her how amazing this service was. I never heard a word of it, but I was there, and I was sitting in that atmosphere. And these people just really loved on me. They fed me, they picked me up, they took me back and forth. I was probably about 7.5 stone then, so they used to give me bags of food home with me, which I was glad of, because my house had turned into a drug den. I mean, I never had electricity, I never had food. That was the last thing on my mind, was buying food. And I remember I started going along to church then, and getting invited along to this service one day, and it was in the Beach Ballroom in Aberdeen, and it was a guy called Brother Young who wrote the book The Heavenly Man. This guy was speaking, and the church were taking everybody under their churches along to hear this guy. So the woman who was working with me picked me up and took me along to this service, and this guy shared his story with a translator. And at the end, I remember people going up and who were in like wheelchairs and stuff, and they were standing up and they were walking, and I'm sitting thinking, this is incredible, like this, there's something in this. This is just amazing. And I remember a guy, a dear friend, who just passed away not long ago, George Bain, who works in Sunnybray. He was in that meeting, and as I was walking out, he just put his arm around me and prayed over me, and always believed that God would break into my life. And I remember that night just being in the car and going away home, and the woman saying to me, Julie, you need to sort your life out. And I remember then just thinking, something began to happen in me. I started to think, maybe God is real. Maybe he could change my life. And it was an amazing, amazing journey that I started on. And then I started going along to church, going to different groups and things like that. And I remember one Easter Sunday going along and thinking, when you're just sitting there and your heart's beating, and he spoke about how God can wash you clean, how God can take all the dirt and all the stuff that you have been through and wash you white as snow. And I remember just thinking, that's me. I need that forgiveness. I need that cleansing power that Pastor's speaking about. And I gave my life to Jesus on an Easter Sunday in 2005. And I left church at night, and I still had an addiction. I still had to to survive and to get my drugs. But I remember at night going home to my flat on my own, sitting with my crack pipe, with my needle, with everything in front of me. And for the first time, just looking, thinking, I do not want this anymore. I am sick and tired of this life. And then I began to cry out to God and thought, God, okay, if you're real, as they say you are, then you need to help me and you need to change my life. And I was crying. I never cried. I was quite a hard life made me like that. You can, when you're in that lifestyle, you've got to be hard just to survive. And I became very, very hard and angry but I cried and I thought, God, you need to help me. And I'd started ringing into Teen Challenge Hope House at a time. Somebody told me about this place you can go to. And within probably a week or so, the church were in packing up my house and we were driving down to Wales. It was all very, very quickly. I remember just phoning up. I remember the woman working with me phoning Hope House and saying, God's doing something in this girl's life, you need to get her in now. And they took me in, they prayed about it as a team and took me in very quickly. So I was grateful for that and went away down to Hope House and started my journey. And to say that it was a shock to the system was an understatement. I mean, I went into chapel the first morning just absolutely rattling, and people were singing and dancing and praying in tongues, and I was thinking, this is just crazy. Like, honestly, I reckon if I can survive here, I'll just stay for a few weeks and then I'll leave on my first visit. I'll go home with the people that come and see me. But God began to do an amazing work and an amazing healing, really, within. I mean, I was, as I says, I was very angry. I had a really bad frown. I used to like frown at people. They used to call me Moaning Jean Faberdine. That was my kind of, it was a staff that called me that was in the residence. But I would have just frowned at everybody. It was like, it's your fault I'm in rehab. Like, why would I have to change? And I remember working through a lot of the classes that we do in Teen Challenge and anger and personal rights, and really looking at myself and searching myself and realizing, why was I angry? Why did I respond the way I responded to things? And I remember one day, and this was a real turning point for me, I was battling between, do I stay or do I go? And I remember being in chapel one day, singing a song, and we just sang about the cleansing power of Jesus. And I sat in the same seat at the back of the chapel, hiding away from everybody, and they sang about it. And God really just broke into my heart in that chapel. And I just got on my knees and sobbed and sobbed. And chapel finished and everybody left. And I was still there sobbing for about 2 hours, honestly. Snot away, just a mess. But God did something in me in that moment. It was like a healing from within. And I got up and I knew from that moment that I would never be the same again. And that didn't mean that I had arrived and I had worked out all my issues, because there was still a massive battle in my mind, which I had to overcome. And again, the Bible speaks about it, isn't it? Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I needed my mind renewed, and I needed to learn how to renew my mind and walk out this freedom that God had given me. But that was a real turning point for me, and I decided that day that I was staying. I was committing myself to the program, and I did. And I mean, you're surrounded by an amazing group of women that are cheering you on and believing in you and seeing the best in you when you feel like an absolute failure. But I mean, they brought me through so much in counselling and all that stuff that we go through on the journey of healing, but always leading you to Jesus, always setting you up to win, always just putting you in situations where you can encounter Jesus for yourself. I then became really passionate about people encountering Jesus, and I always knew that I wanted to work in rehab. I remember hearing a team sharing that had been on mission, and I remember thinking, incredible how their lives have changed, and can I want people to experience that, and I was so passionate about it that I knew that I was called to help people, and that was my call, to help people and care for people, and it was something that God had birthed within me. And when I got to the end of the program, I would like to say at that point, at graduation, that I had all the answers, and I never. I mean, I had went through 2 lots of quite a grueling treatment for the hepatitis that I had. The second lot of treatment, I went through treatment once and got the all clear, and then it came back. It was like a 1 in, I reckon, how many chance of it happening. But it happened to me, and I remember then the battle in my mind consuming me all over again. But then I had to go through another year of treatment, and at this point I was working full time. I just started working on the detox department, so when the girls were first coming in, you could share with them. I used to, one of my work colleagues used to call me the Rockweiler, because I used to love sitting down and getting them when they first come in, because you tell them about Jesus, they need to get saved, because if they leave tomorrow, you reckon further they're going to end up. So I was passionate about telling people about Jesus. But the struggle of the treatment was really difficult. But I came through that, and thankfully to this day I'm still clear, which is amazing. But really went through some difficult seasons in my mind, but with the love and support really of the people in Hope House, I was able to come through that. And then a job came up, a women's centre opened up back home, and I always knew that I wanted to come back up the road. I just never knew when. And I applied for a job in the women's centre. It was new open. It'd been open about 4 or 5 months, and I got the job, and I moved back up to Fraserburgh. At that time, me and Paul kind of met at the School of Ministry. He was in Winchester House and I was in Wales, and we kind of kept in touch. And then before I moved back up, we kind of got together, and then very quickly got engaged, and then I moved back up. It was like God just planned everything, and he does, doesn't he? That's how God works. But moved back up, worked in Teen Challenge Benaya for 10 years, finished there last September, and then I took some time out. Paul obviously moved away. We've got 2 young kids, which was challenging, trying to juggle everything, and but God's kind of brought us on a different route now, and I'm thankful for my life. I'm thankful for everything that He's given me, and I mean, I still pinch myself. I actually, even after 15 years, I still pinch myself and think, why me, God? Why would you choose me? Why not? Why would He not choose me? Why would He not choose each one of us to live this life and to give Him glory? And again, I came home, and I really had a heart for women that were involved in prostitution, and I started up an outreach in Aberdeen with the women there, and we took a bus out. At the minute we're obviously now because of COVID, but we partnered just recently with street pastors, and we use their truck, and we park up every Thursday night and offer hope to these women that are broken and in such a vulnerable state, a lot of them. And it's amazing how God kind of works things out, because then there was the connection that we've always had and still have. We different rehabs, but then a lot of our girls, when you just see them on the street, you often wonder if it's happened to them, but then they end up in prison. So then, because Paul was in Grampian at the time, we were able to then connect with the girls, and that was incredible. But now I actually work now in Grampian as a part-time chaplain. The hours that Paul left, I got, which is funny, really. So when Paul was up the road for the start of lockdown, when he should have been doing the road, he was doing my induction. So that was quite interesting. He was to be boss for a day. yeah, it's funny how God just works these things out in our life, and we have. I'd love to say that we just have got this great life which we have, and I'm thankful for absolutely everything that I've got. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my life and the journey that I get to go on, and the conversations that I get to have. I'm a very thankful person, but it's not always been easy. It's not always been easy. There's been so many challenging times for us as a family, but we have really just had to press into God, as each one of us do. We press into God, we experience His peace, and He brings us through time and time again, doesn't He? And every time we go through something, we come out it so much stronger. And I've learned as I've journeyed through life that everything we go through, nothing's wasted. And I used to think, how would God use that situation, that tough situation that I had to deal with? And He does. And there's situations I sit with people and I'm able to share situations. Some of the girls I've worked with in the past would say, well, Julie, you haven't got a clue. And I would say, well, let me tell you a little bit of my journey. And it's the same in a prison. Like, you sit with people and you're able to say, like, they'll say to me, like, oh, it's funny. Like, you go in and they'll say, oh, such and such, the chaplain's here to see you. And I think, okay, I just pinch myself. I think, the chaplain, I laugh at myself. I think, I'm just Julie Faverdeen. There's nothing special about me. But God chooses us, doesn't He? And God, as Paul says, He puts gifts and talents in each one of us to use for His kingdom, to build His kingdom. And I'm passionate about seeing people just find freedom in Christ. And I'm thankful for my times in Teen Challenge. I'm thankful for the ministry. It's an incredible ministry. And I'm absolutely astounded by them stats that we heard at the start. It really does kind of make you just more passionate about why we do what we do. And it gives me itchy feet because I went to get back out and we're done. The amount of people I'm sure you've heard during lockdown that are searching for help, and so many stuff shut down. It's very, very challenging times, but we're believing and praying that God will bring loads more people into His kingdom through the ministry. It's an incredible ministry, and it's a ministry that is very close to our heart and will always be a big part of our journey. And it's funny, I just had a conversation with my daughter the other day. I'm thinking, wait, I was telling Paul, like, when do you tell, or do you ever tell your children about your past? Like, and my daughter used to come into work with me on a Sunday when I was working, and she used to love her time on shift with Mum on a Sunday, and she'd chat with the girls, and they would all like pleat her hair, and it was great fun. But she brought up the conversation the other day about that place she used to work at, Mum, and I says yes, and I kind of says how I lived in Wales, and she went, I never knew you lived in Wales, which then stemmed this conversation. I was able to hear a conversation with my daughter about how we help people and how Mummy used to help people. Well, there was a time where Mummy needed help, and just having that conversation, thinking, wow, God has blessed me so much in my life, and just watching her, listening to me, and even just bringing your kids along to church. And when I think of the things I was doing as a young child, and I look at her, and she's 9 now, and I think that I was doing at the age of 10, 11, like, I just want to protect her and nurture her and pour into her.
I always say, Julie, to my kids that